Welcome back to Early Start. I'm Zoraida Samblin along with Ashley Banfield. It is 5:41 in the East, and this morning, the American woman freed during that daring U.S. raid in Somalia could be reunited with her father and her husband. Jessica Buchanan's father is said to be making his way to Nairobi, Kenya, as we speak right now. We're also learning more about the elite commandos who carried out Tuesday night's mission. It included members of the Navy SEAL team that killed Osama bin Laden. They parachuted in and entered the compound, killing at least 9 pirates. They escaped with the unharmed hostages by helicopter. Eric Greitens is a former Navy SEAL, and he is joining us this morning. Very nice to see you. Thank you for being with us.
Pleasure to be on with you, Zoraida.
The pleasure is all ours. You know, as we're watching all of this and listening to all of the details, we're really riveted by it. We find out that it's SEAL Team 6, the same elite team that took out Osama bin Laden, although we don't know that it is the same people that were involved in that team. Can you talk us through the planning and the rehearsal that has to happen in order to execute this?
So for an operation like this, it's likely that planning for this kind of contingency, Zoraida, would have been happening for months. As soon as an American hostage was taken at the end of October, members of this unit and this intelligence community would have started to think about how to plan for an operation for a rescue. As they developed a fuller intelligence picture, they would have assessed their options and then determined when they were ready to go.
So we knew from the Osama bin Laden raid that they actually built a compound very similar to it in order to practice. Would that happen in a situation like this too?
Navy SEALs always try to prepare as best as they possibly can. It's very likely that if they had had the opportunity to build a compound like this, to practice, to do mock assaults, they would have done everything that they can to rehearse every aspect of the operation. Whether or not they did so in this case, we don't know, but relentless preparation is part of what goes into making all of these operations successful.
I was reading online that the aerial surveillance of the scene was hampered because it was a cloudy night. What is going through the head of a Navy SEAL when they are dropped in a situation like that?
When they're dropped into a situation like that, every SEAL is thinking about execution of the mission. In this case, they knew that in order for this to be a successful mission, they had to bring out both of those hostages alive. So no matter what else is going on, all they're thinking about is how can they work together as a team to accomplish that mission.
Now, what are the rules of engagement in a situation like this? Because we understand we're watching right now a simulation of a firefight, and we do know that there was fire. Do they have to wait until they're fired on, or are they allowed to fire first? What are the rules of engagement there?
So the rules of engagement are going to be set by the chain of command. The Pentagon hasn't yet released the specific rules of engagement that they gave to the SEALs in this particular situation. Sometimes the enemy can be what's called declared hostile. That was the case with Osama bin Laden. That means the minute that you see Osama bin Laden, he's a hostile enemy. In other cases, they actually say that there has to be some aggressive action before the enemy is hostile. We don't know what the specific rules of engagement were for this operation yet.
You know, we're hearing more about situations like this. Of course, the Osama bin Laden situation and this one. Do you think that this is going to be used as a more prominent tool going forward?
Absolutely. Going forward, we're going to be relying more on units like this, more on special operations than we have even in the past. When you think about what's happening not just in Somalia and Afghanistan, but you think about threats in Yemen, for example, all of this is dependent upon the use of special operations and teams of intelligence professionals who can come together and eliminate threats like this with surgical precision.
Can you just talk a little bit before we go here about the training that takes place in order to become a Navy SEAL? I think that's what we're looking at right now.
Navy SEALs go through the hardest training in the world. BUDS stands for Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. It's considered to be the hardest military training in the world. And the pinnacle of that training is a famous week called Hell Week. It's considered to be the hardest week of the hardest military training in the world.
How many make it through versus folks
well,
who be...
in my class, we started with over 220 people in the original class, and by the time we graduated, Zoraida, we were down to 21.
Wow. Well, Eric Greitens, we could talk to you all day. We really appreciate you stopping by this morning.
My pleasure.